Hi, I'm Kaylee, and this is my March reading wrap-up and my wrap-up for the middle grade March readathon. I read a lot of great books in March, most of the middle grade. I enjoyed so much of my reading. I read 4 middle grade and 2 classics that also fall under middle grade. I read 2 nonfiction, 2 children's books, 1 graphic novel that was also sort of middle grade graphic novel. I reviewed 2 activity books, and I read 17 children's picture books. Before we dive into all those books, I'm going to reach back here to our Booktuber Shoutout book, and we're going to shout out somebody randomly. And today's random shout out goes to Elliot Brooks. I'll be sure to leave a link to their channel down in the description, so go over and subscribe to them. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe to this channel and give this video a big thumbs up if you just had such a good reading month in March. As always, I'm going to start with the classics. I read The Little Bookroom, which is a collection of short stories by Eleanor Fargian. I'm not really quite sure how to say that. This is such a charming collection of short stories ranging from elements from fairy tales or settings in Victorian England and in Italy. You never quite know, are you in fairyland or is the setting in World War II? There's just such a varied settings and characters and different magical elements, but every single story draws you in with this enchanting writing style. It doesn't matter if you are in the spectacular world of ladies and knights and fairies and giants and kings, or if you're following raggedy children on the street, or a sad little girl who has been sent to the country during a London Blitz. No matter what the setting, that writing makes each one feel immediate and significant, while also entertaining you with funny little dialogue and magical tricks. There's just something so graceful and so sweet about each one of these stories. Every single one is a treasure. And I gave this book 5 stars. I also read the 9th book in the Aunt Jane's Nieces series by L. Frank Baum. This is Aunt Jane's Nieces Out West. Uncle John and his nieces discover the pitfalls, the delights, and the dangers of the motion picture business when they befriend 2 young actresses in California. And when a mysterious young man makes their acquaintance, the group is sort of puzzled to figure out what he's actually doing in California. This is such a fun story. It has a mystery and stolen jewels. There is a daring rescue and all the intrigues of the early days of silent film. It was really interesting to see how the nieces and Uncle John kind of get entangled in the lives of these 2 actresses. And it was so interesting to learn about the silent motion picture film industry in its early days. It's like this little snippet of history. I think my favorite character in this entire series is probably Patsy. She is wild and winsome and determined. You just never quite know what crazy thing she's going to do next. The writing style is so charming and old-fashioned. It's a complete delight. I gave this book 4 stars. All the rest of the books in this video are books that I received from a publisher in exchange for a free and honest review. I read A Dragon Used to Live Here. Thomas and Emily are the children of a knight and lady. They are noble children. They live in a castle. They take archery lessons. They learn courtly manners and knightly conduct. And they meet Meg, who is a scribe and says that she used to know their mother when they were children. And Meg tells them stories about a dragon who used to live in the castle and how their mother became involved in a terrifying adventure. However, is Meg telling the truth, or is she just weaving a tall tale? I really love the story inside of a story structure for this book. Meg is gradually telling the children the story of the dragon, and in the present, you have a whole storyline that you're following as Thomas and Emily try to reconcile Meg with her old friend, their mother. There are adventures and exciting plot twists in both stories. The whole story is just so brilliant. The story structure is so perfect. The writing is witty and hilarious. Every page is full of snappy dialogue and little jokes. The little details in the setting make the world building really special. It just draws you into that story. It's also beautifully illustrated. All the way through, you have all the comedy coming through in the artwork, and it just enhances the story so much. It makes it so fun. I loved this book from start to finish, and I gave it 5 stars. I also read The Last Mapmaker. Sai pretends to be from a wealthy family in order to get an apprenticeship with a map maker. She hides that her father is a criminal, and she uses her skills as a forger to help her copy the maps. And when the map maker goes on a sea voyage to explore new regions of the world, Sai is eager to leave her past behind and start a new life. But there are tales of dragons and dangerous seas in the south. However, if they can make the voyage, the riches and rewards could be enormous. I loved this story so much. It's so exciting as they travel further and further from Sai's home. And the people on board the ship begin to divide into different groups with very different goals. And there's the adventure and the emotional journey. There's a lot of tension and suspense. Oh, there's so many great twists in the plot. One of the things I really loved is that in the beginning of the book, we aren't really sure if dragons are real or just a legend in this world. Some people that we meet believe in dragons. Other people say it's just stories, it's just legends. It's such a mystery. So as they go further and further into wilder seas in the south, will there be dragons there? Or is it all just a silly tale? Sai has such amazing character development. She changes so much through the story that by the end of the story, she is making completely different decisions than she made at the beginning of the story. I just love her complex personality. And I really loved the thoughtful, concise writing style. Really powerful. It shows the reader the emotional struggles that are kind of boiling under the surface of every scene. There are a lot of deep themes in this book. In the beginning, Sai's world seems pretty simple, and she thinks she has it all figured out. But as she learns more about the history of her country, she begins to realize that there are far-reaching consequences for every action. She learns about trust, she learns about shame and guilt. There's loyalty, betrayal, and just the value of truth. So many great themes that are explored in all kinds of different directions with different characters. This book is just so phenomenal. However, I did end up giving it 4 stars just because the ending felt a little bit rushed. It felt like just bing, bang, boom, and then the end. And I needed a little bit of a slower denouement at the end. So I did take off a little bit of a star for that. So that made it 4 stars. But it's fine. Like, it's still a good ending. It's fine. I'm just being too picky, that's all. I also read The Monster in the Lake, which is the second book in the Kit the Wizard series, which starts with Dragon in the Library. In this second book, Kit and her friends are flabbergasted by a recent surge of wild magic. The magic spells are going haywire, just random things are happening, animals in the park start talking to humans, something magical is bubbling up from the depths of the lake. This new adventure will take Kit all the way to Scotland, where she has to solve the mystery of this unpredictable wild magic. I loved this book. The characters, the plot, the world building, the magic, just everything is wonderful. The writing style is absolutely hilarious. There were so many cute little bits of dialogue or just funny little scenes that had me laughing, like out loud, guffaw, huge laughing. I just love Kit's character. She is bold and reckless and smart. She is always making mistakes, but then she will work really hard to correct it and to try to do better. And I love her friends, Alita and Josh. They are both bookish. They just love knowledge and learning. They're kind of very opposite from Kit. But it's just so wonderful to see how these 3 friends, with all their differences, they really rely on one another. It's so interesting how they interact together. In this second book, we get to see a little more depth to their friendship and some really good character development. The black and white illustrations are so lovely. Every few pages, there are some really cute illustrations. It just helps you to visualize everything that you're reading. I can't quite put my finger on why I love this series so much. It's just so charming. Every chapter is a delight. I finished this entire book in one day. I just couldn't stop reading. It just made me happy to read it. It made me happy in this deep down, just sort of carefree, kind of silly, joyful way. This book, this series, it's like it just makes me believe in magic. I also read the 6th book in the Explorer Academy series, The Dragon's Blood. In this book, Cruz and his friends travel to China where they search for clues in an emperor's tomb. With nebulous spies all around, Cruz has to wonder who is telling him the truth. But the truth is more complicated than he realizes. There are a lot of plot twists in this book. The adventure is fantastic. It's really interesting to learn about the different settings around the world where they travel to. They visit these historical sites and you get to learn about it. And I just adore all these characters. They always have some kind of good character development going on. They all have such different personalities. And I really love the balance of the writing. There are some funny scenes and some really serious places in the story. The adventure can get pretty dangerous sometimes, but then there's some humor to keep things light. And the artwork is really cool in this one. It's actually kind of layered with photos and then artwork on top of that. So it's a really interesting, almost like a mixed media kind of thing. It's so cool. And I super love the cool fictional technology. There's this sensitive gel that can sense your emotions. And there's a helmet that lets you talk to whales. And of course, there's Mel, the robot honeybee drone. She is always by Cruz's side, ready to protect her master. And Cruz and his friends travel to a remote area and they use a fancy camera that looks like a local plant to take some photos of wildlife when a motion detector goes off. There are just so many great elements in this story that are just so interesting and fun. However, kind of comparing this book to other books in the series, I don't feel like this is my favorite book from the series. It's still really, really good, but I don't know, it didn't have quite the pizzazz adventure that some of the other books in the series do. Since it didn't quite grab me the way some of the other ones did, I've just given it 4 stars, but it's still amazing. Then I read the graphic novel, The Orphan King. This graphic novel follows Prince Caden, who travels to a faraway island for combat training with his aunt. When he returns, he finds the kingdom in ruins and his parents are missing. With a price on his head, Caden can trust no one and he is being hunted wherever he goes. I just love the legendary tropes in this book. Caden is kind of like a King Arthur type character, and there is also a Robin Hood type character. But the story isn't really a retelling of either of those stories. It just kind of has elements from those ideas. I can't wait to read the next volume in this series. I hope they publish it really soon. The artwork is so excellent. Every page is full of color and energy. And the color scheme for each chapter just sets the mood for those scenes. This is such a fun adventure with sword fights and mythical beasts and knights in armor. I really enjoyed this and I gave it 4 stars. I also read a couple of nonfiction. I read The Stardust That Made Us, a visual exploration of chemistry, atoms, elements, and the universe. This book teaches the reader about the periodic table, how the elements were discovered, how they are categorized, and how each element behaves. We learn about scientists throughout history who studied and discovered new elements and how scientists today are still searching for new super heavy elements. I really loved the explanations of how different elements got their names. Some of them are named after cities, after famous scientists, after Greek gods, and after planets. It was just so interesting to learn all the history behind the periodic table. The artwork in this is so colorful, so attractive. The design of each page is just beautifully organized. All those little factoids and different bits of information in separate boxes on each page. It makes it easy to read. It really captures your attention. I gave this 4 stars. I also read Kids Fight Climate Change. This book gives information about climate change and challenges kids to make changes in their daily lives lives to help save the planet. Most of the projects are simple, common sense things like, don't waste water when you brush your teeth, and recycle, and plant trees, and respect animals, and pick up trash on the beach. However, I was really disappointed in the biased approach of this book. There were a lot of climate change issues that were presented completely one-sided. I mean, I understand some things have to be simplified for a children's book, but this felt like they were deliberately sweeping certain facts under the rug. And the author is not an environmental scientist or an expert on climate change. It just seemed like there was a serious lack of research in this book. A lot of the time, it looked like the author was just giving their personal opinion instead of giving the facts. It just makes me feel like I can't trust the author because they're misrepresenting things. The artwork is really colorful, very attractive. The design is just beautifully laid out. If only the author had just stuck with simple advice like how to start a beehive, or plant a garden, or save electricity, or compost your kitchen waste, then I would have enjoyed it. But no, this was just not at all something that I was interested in. It felt like it was just biased propaganda instead of real information, and that just ruined it for me, and so I only gave it 2 stars. I also read the first 2 books in the Book Buddies series. I read Ivy Lost and Found and Marco Polo Brave Explorer. These 2 toys have been added to the Book Buddies collection at the library, and children can check out a toy just the same way that they would check out a book. These books are just so cute, and there are lots of positive messages that are woven into the narrative, but it never feels preachy or boring. The themes include things like being honest and accepting others and being brave. They have beautiful, soft pencil artwork, just so many cute little toy characters. These stories, both of these, just gave me warm, fuzzy feelings in my heart. I gave both of these 5 stars. And now let's go through all of the children's picture books that I read. I read Earworm, where a little worm gets an earworm song stuck in his head. I read Sometimes Cake, where a little girl and a lion find reasons to celebrate with cake. I read Not That Pet, where a little girl keeps choosing troublesome pets at the pet store. I read I'm a Neutrino, Tiny Particles in a Big Universe, Marshmallow Clouds, 2 Poets at Play Among Figures of Speech, Bumblebee Grumblebee, Lit for Little Hands, which is a children's board book edition of Jane Eyre, The Melody, Adventure Kitty, Take Off Your Brave, The World Through the Eyes of a Preschool Poet, John's Turn, My Big Book of Outdoors, I'll Go and Come Back, This is a School, Ready for the Spotlight, Tea Party with Brielle, and My Colorful World, Making New Friends. And those are all of the books that I read in March. Please leave me a comment down below and let me know what was your favorite book that you read this past month. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and remember, the right book in the right hands at the right time can change the world.